Hello and welcome to the second discussion of Stormed Fortress. This is the eighth book in the Wars of Light and Shadow series by Janny Wurts. We've been working our way through these books approximately 100 to 150 pages every 2 weeks. Today we'll be talking chapters 5 through 8. With me, I have some of the friends we chat about these books with. Jared, could you start us off with introductions?
Yes, I'm Jared. I am at the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel and also on podcasts associated with pagechewing.com, including Speculations and other ones.
Yes, many of those. Chibipo.
I am Chibi Po, longtime reader of this and a person who pops in on, podcasts and discussions here and there, very rarely, but and happy to be here.
Very nice. And Chibipo is apparently glad that we've at last got into chapter 5, where nothing much happens. Nope, it's just another chapter, right? Right.
Just another chapter. Nothing.
Just another chapter.
There's just an argument with a willful teenage girl, and nothing else happens.
Yeah.
Nothing else happens. Nope.
At all.
They try to convince her to leave and fail, and that's it. That's the end of the chapter.
Yep.
Yeah. What was the? I had a question about
Mhm.
Gensja. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the? I'm trying to find it now. What was the big deal about? She was hauled barefoot from her bed, and she had dared to wear black. So, what was the big deal about that?
She's claiming black is the Cathdians, colors, and she's claiming the authority of the role without being invested.
Without being invested yet. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's kind of what I thought. But just wanted to double check that.
Yes.
Yeah. So then she has a big argument with Alara. And let's see.
Ilera connects to Arathon to allow him to witness the whole confrontation with Genza.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. That's right.
I like what Arathon says about this. He wants to give her another chance to take charge and learn that pain and loss are not life, that her will is no weapon to forge betrayed love into a shackle of tyranny.
Yeah. Yeah. He had a few good lines in this the beginning of this chapter here. And he seems to have I don't know about you guys, but I felt like Arathon has grown a bit in wisdom by this point. He seems a little less. He like in earlier books, he had more of a temper, and he was a bit more harsh on people when he was speaking to them. And maybe that was, maybe part of that was the curse's fault. But even when Lysaea wasn't around, he was still very quick to judge, and very harsh, like a taskmaster with some of his people he's working with. And now it seems that he's shown a bit more restraint. He's shown a bit more wisdom. You mentioned that line, Vasha, and then he's also said stuff like, why should I rise to a stroke of foul play? And him and Alara were kind of kidding around about burning away some of the false dross of idealism. And they were, when they were speaking about Fionn Arith. And so I just got this overall sense that he's seems to have grasped, maybe through his ordeals in Trader's Knot and what have you, in the end of Peril's Gate. That he seems to have matured even beyond what he already was. I don't know if you guys felt that.
I think I agree. Yeah, So before, and maybe even now to a certain extent, apparently he lashes out to hide his hurt because of the forced compassion that he is subjected to because of his
Mm.
genetic heritage. But um, so I feel like he's doing that a lot less. He's opening himself up a lot more to demonstrate his vulnerabilities rather than hiding them behind anger and snarkiness.
Hmm.
But it's also possible we're just catching him in those moments where he's allowing himself to be seen because he is doing that purposefully with Genza and Dame Dor and whatnot. So, but it could also be that his he also learned not to hate himself in Peril's Gate, right?
Right.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm fairly certain that has to have an impact on how he conducts himself now. But maybe we're saying
Yeah. And
that's what we're saying, yeah.
that's actually a big statement about human nature in general. Is that's a good line. Learning not to hate yourself,
Hmm.
because that usually is the first step toward any kind of healing. Really, is that very thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah, we and there was a couple other interesting lines before we get to the big event in this
That did
chapter.
not happen.
Um, and one of them was about Silkwood having its own protection. Um, and I was wondering if Chibi could elaborate a little bit on that. Is that because of the sorcerers, or is it because of other magical properties of Silkwood?
It's related to, like it's related to the place that he, petitions, to visit,
Yeah.
and uh, several um, such places exist, um, not just in Selkwood but elsewhere, and Paravians, lived and dwelled there, and their workings, um, uh, are and exist, and that's the things he wants to trigger to which we in the last bit we covered, laying the triggering the Paravian wardings by playing the
Right.
Mistrace curse, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So the Silkwood would have its own Paravian wardings, I'm assuming.
yeah,
Okay.
um, but I think also it's um, it's one of the things that he came away out of Peril's Gate is he's moved to the point or uh, even with the curse's influence, where he was trying to, spare the biggest number of people and whatnot, and he's still determined not to kill if possible, but he's also, uh, um, kind of moved past the point of, just like assigning, the same value to everybody.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, like
Because
like how the centaur, chastised him about how, am I worth this death? And he's like, how does this person matter more than, your own close allies? So he's,
right.
I think he, in some sense, he's, kind of hit the point where he's like, someone's doing the things Jane's does, you know, um, they'll try to, bring them around, but if he can't, he's, um, not gonna like, stretch himself, even further. It's just like, if I can't do this, I can cut them off.
Right. Because he's entering this area in order to 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 try to contact Ath. Um, and so I think people were worried that he was going to somehow expose the area, somehow, um, draw attention to it. for the wrong kind of intention, and that's when he basically told him that don't worry about it. Silkwood has its own protection. So um, it was just an interesting little side note, and there was also an interesting line about centaurs. What was it? The centaur guardians had used when their grace was petitioned to act in behalf of the realm, and and he sought a similar path that they did when they were when their grace was petitioned, and so it was the correlation between of him using similar means of accessing this area, um, as the centaurs were petitioned in a previous, you know, era, uh, was cool. It's all cool stuff. It was interesting uh, for that reason.
Yeah, the King's Grove was also new, and they seem to have uh, not quite the same level of, but a similar terror as associated with what was that maze, Kivar maze
Hmm.
that he went through in Peril's Gate. Um, so there was the harm to that he could bring upon the surroundings, I guess, because I guess he could unset the balance of the lanes or something by going there.
Yeah.
Uh, but also, he was risking going crazy, kind of like what we saw happen with, oh, I forget his name. His name starts with a V. The Gallant.
Oh,
Very.
yeah, very, yeah.
Right, yeah. What happened to him, essentially, by exposing himself to Paravians. And Arathon has seen Paravians in this section, but he's come out okay. And he's seen them multiple times, and he's been able to handle that sense of deprivation. He's been able to manage it. One thing I wasn't sure about, Athlane is the afterlife, right? That's the area of the afterlife. And or is that a place here? Because these are supposedly Athlane Paravians that, and I know there's a place name starting with an A.
Athleria.
Okay, that's different then. Okay. Ateliria. Yeah, I always confuse that and the place that Fiona is from. But, uh,
Arathuria.
yeah.
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 So,
Arathura.
oh,
Arathura.
oh,
Arathura.
the appendix in this book has quite a lot of information. It's
Yeah.
not interesting. Okay, I got to read that. I was trying to find the glossary. Is there no glossary here? Or okay, wait.
Uh,
Oh, okay, it's before the
yeah,
appendix.
there's a glossary.
Yeah. Athlearia
Uh-huh.
is the dimension removed from physical time space, or the
Mm.
exalted that lies past the veil.
I see. Okay, so the ones he saw were sun children, which are Athelian Paravians. Like that's their title. Like, I
Correct.
guess, like the centers are something starting with an I. Ithilarian.
Ithilarius, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
the unicorns are Riathan.
Ah,
Okay,
right.
okay. So that's what they. So they were living, honest to God, Paravians that he saw.
Yep.
Dancers of the crystal flutes, small race of semi-mortals, pixie-like but possessed of great wisdom, keepers of the grand mystery.
Yeah. So we got to see one of those, the sun child, step from the wood.
Mhm.
I was like,
Yeah,
oh, look at that.
yeah. The only other mention of sun children that I remember is from the first book when they were talking about the forging of Alitiel,
The sword. Yeah.
and the sword was apparently too big for sun children, so we know that they're smaller than humans.
Wow. You remembered that? Wow.
Yeah,
And I
they're
noted that detail. I was like, sun children sounded like big and magnificent creatures, but apparently Alethea is too big for them, and it's just the right size for centaurs. So And it was made
Well,
for a
it
smaller
was
centaur.
lithial. Yeah, was for most centaurs it looks like a toy because it was
Yeah.
forged for a the one it was forged for, if I remember right, was undersized.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
why humans are able to wield it. If it was centaur sized, it would be too big for humans.
yeah,
Sorry, I remember far too much about Alethea.
and then for the Sun Children, with their height, yeah, they're basically like the sword is probably as big as they get.
Mm, okay.
You think they're
Mm.
like she lists their actual height somewhere, but it's like 2 to 3 feet. They're not really, at least if I remember correctly, they're not really. Yeah, they're pretty short.
Sprite
Mm.
size, yeah.
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 Yeah. So, and he was, he was asking if the Sun Child was real, and and then he had he gave himself to her or him. Oh, I don't know what the Sun
Her.
Child is. Her, um, with all his heart. He rested it in her care, and then he gets relieved of the mist race entanglements, which is huge.
No.
Nothing, right? No.
What? that
Yeah.
felt almost too easy. I know it wasn't. Like he went through an ordeal to make it happen. But once again, like Talet's death happened in a news item. This just happened. We've been waiting for it for what, 6 books at this point? And it just happened
Yeah.
out of
Well,
nowhere.
I mean, it's yeah, but it's one of those huge things because he, um, uh, similar to, uh, sort of akin to the whole bit with Jireth back in Fugitive Prince, um, and then we got the hints of it in Peril's Gate when he, recast himself in song to um, fight off the encroachment of the curse. Even though um, he couldn't undo the curse, he could
Right.
undo the extra grasp
Yeah.
it had gained on him.
Yeah, he could subdue some of its
Yeah,
pull,
yeah, and cut it off from
just
affecting
through
him, but didn't.
just through mental fortitude. Yeah. But now he's cured of that.
Yes.
And he's got his blade back. He's got his sword back.
Mm-hmm.
So that ends up being used later on. The actual sword.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it's like a short event, but yeah, it was one of those. It's like this was monumentally dangerous. If he hadn't been able to, you know, uh, hold on to his sense of self and identity, he wouldn't have come back.
Yes, and that's what everybody was worried about. And even in the next section response, even the sorcerers are surprised by this.
Yeah.
They're kind of like, wow. They're contemplating his success. They're going, wow, this is new. This was unseen. They even said, what was the term they used? Smash the frames of reliable augury.
Yeah.
Which is, your future telling didn't mean anything because this is what happened.
Yeah, that sequence was quite amazing. The Another description of that King's Grove place that I thought was kind of funny, but served to describe the dangers of that place really well. Was he battled to hold to his human separation as the stones and the plants and the teeming of life threatened to unstring his whole being with welcome. So he was being welcomed, but it was a threat, and it was unstringing his whole being with welcome.
Welcome. I'm going to take you apart piece by
Yeah.
piece.
Well, yeah. It's just the whole their song cast him out past the edge of, and that was the possibility that he was, worried about. Would it lift him out past the point of mortal existence to start to pass the veil, where things like um, the curse would be, sheared away. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, and
And
it
I
would
thought this.
hold himself, still, instead of being like, yeah, this is fantastic and it's joyful, and I get to, join with the chorus of all life. Yeah, I'm be on my way now.
Yeah. And I thought it was important that when the sorcerers were like, "How's this happen?" Um, one of the first questions they asked, which was one of the first questions I was going to ask, was, "Well, can they also do that for the half brother? Can he escape, the curse?" And they don't have an answer. But
Well, fun fact: this was offered, or not via the Athelian Paravians, but Lysaeus, had this offered to him.
oh, way back in
Ships of Marior.
Ships of Mario, that's right, when he visited the Aths hostel. Um, yeah, and he refused. And of course, back then, he was not aware. Um, as I mean, because I think Lysae is aware now, right?
These, yeah, um, yeah, yeah. He's aware that he's messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely aware he's messed up. Uh, I don't. I think his level of awareness on that part of it is probably greater now than it was back then.
Yep.
Um,
But yeah, though had he taken the 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 offer in ships, um, if I remember correctly, yeah, he wouldn't have. Very unlikely he would have actually come back across. It would have just been a
very possible. Yeah, right.
yeah, passing the veil, shearing him free of.
Yeah, would he have been able to come back like Arathon did? Right. Yeah. Very right. Yeah.
I was trying to remember what the thing with Traith was that we learned that I forget which book. I think it was the third or fourth book when they, or maybe it was the second. When the Fellowship sorcerers were trying to find the nature of the mystery, and discovered that some, like, basically that Traith's soul has been sundered somewhat and maybe
Yep.
rests with the mystery, and that was similar to something that was going on with the brothers. I forget what it was.
They, you might have confused two things. I think maybe, when the race followed Caradmon and Warhost, and Sephir baited them, and split his soul up. Really, and then afterwards, when he voluntarily split his soul up so that Traith could use his powers to look at Lysaeur's spirit and all that. He realized that, oh, maybe this is the missing pieces of Traith's spirit are were caught and entangled up inside the mist wraith that's sealed at Rockfell. And that if they they're like, oh yeah, which means Arathon could possibly be our only means to extricate those and and whatnot as a master bard, which is as they remark at the time, a very slim hope, but a slim hope's better than none. The brothers, I think that was in ships when they were talking about the Mithurian, and they did their reverse scrying of the past, and we're comparing that against what the Mistwraith did. I think maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, yeah, I thought Traith's survival was somehow tied to Arathon's, but I guess it was in the Mistwraith only. I was wondering if the Paravians could heal Traith, for instance, the way they healed Arathon, but maybe they
I
don't have the power to extricate the part of his soul that is trapped with the mistrait. I don't know. Or maybe they were.
well, I possibly they could, but they, um, as we know at the seven refused to, or the Paravians refused to, um, uh, engage with the Mist Wraith. In the way that would be required um, to extricate the pieces. So I think they could heal him, but they need that. Um, they need those parts, to do it. And
Got
for
it.
whatever reason, even though the Provians help fight it, all the seven know is that the Provians refuse to engage with it on on a deeper level for some reason, which is probably because they found out what it was, had realized what it was, and and thus didn't want to,
This is for humans to deal with.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, humans did this to themselves. Let them deal with this. Um, yeah, I also like that Arathon was basically like broken apart and then remade, kind of like some descriptions of quantum teleportation that I've read. I think it was in a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book. When people are like, no, we don't like quantum teleportation because we don't like being split up into our barest atoms and put back together. It's kind of, well, except it wasn't quite his body, it was his soul that was remade, but that was cool.
But yeah, that's one of the where she's delved into quantum and stuff for the underpinnings. It's really cool.
Mhm.
All right, cool. Then we
Yeah.
get next is and then the attack begins on the land-based attack on Alastron begins when they start storming the fortress. Um,
Yeah.
just another minor event in this chapter.
They, they get what? They get destroyed a little bit with the trebuchet, but they, well, no, that's afterwards. First
Yeah,
they try to storm the city, and there's nobody there, and instead of running back and suspecting a trap, they're like, yeah, cool. This is an easy victory, let's take it. And they get destroyed by all the traps that Siddhi helped lay out.
yeah. That continued on into the next chapter.
Mhm.
Uh,
Um,
but
with
also,
Count.
look how the tables have turned. Mirren and Dakar collaborating. Because
They
you have
do.
Talvish and uh, um, Talvish, and I think they look up Sadir as well to help set up all those traps and everything.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
forget what Mian and Dakar's relationship was before.
Well, I mean the brothers went and tortured him, so I think this is uh,
I see. Okay, yeah.
for Dakar. I think this is the first time. Uh, oh no, it's not the first. It's the first time he's been in the same place with all of them. Um, uh, in quite a while. It's like he had the whole bit in Grand Conspiracy with I believe it was Parian, um, but otherwise he hasn't really interacted with them much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. That bit, yeah, is interesting that he's able to work with them now. Sorry, you said something interesting that I wanted to zoom in on and I forgot. Mm-hmm.
yeah. They also had Alara kind of sent what's his name, Sidir,
Yeah.
um, to try to talk some sense into Fionn.
Yes, at Arathon's behest. The the initial, I mean, while Siddhi is still avoiding him, uh Fionn asks him, "What crime did you commit for all the whiplashes that you bear?" And he says, "I was born." And
Yeah,
that,
right.
that is such a powerful response.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially why they were enslaving the clan-born men and women, I guess.
Yeah, because and it was um that's right. What crime saw you branded? Yeah, and he didn't immediately answer him. He said, "I'm not gonna just answer to any insult or
Mm.
stoop to your sick curiosity or what have you." And so it wasn't. Once again, there's no easy answers in relationships here. They're all hard won, and they're all still very standoffish with each other. And I'm talking about all the characters in this whole
Mhm.
scenario. They're not they're not friends. They may be allies against Lysaea, but they're not exactly friends either. So
Yeah, yeah.
it makes for some interesting dynamics between all the different characters.
I did like, when he's, Fion's trying to snoop up on Sadir, and Sadir is just like whip snap, knife, throw. And, Fion's like, what if you had killed your liege? And Sadir's like, Psh, you fool. You really think I'd make that kind of mistake?
Yeah. Yeah. So the attack begins, and then Davian's speaking with Arathon, and they're scrying the assault as it's going on. Davian scries it, so they're kind of looking at it. They see that the assault fails due to all the setup of the traps and what have you, um, and just some good defense. And we get a lot of good descriptions in this section about the ongoing fighting. The different battles and stuff like that. And just the eagle eye viewpoint of it that Davian provides. Good stuff. Good stuff here.
The argument about the cloak that Davian gave him, like apparently he gave him a cloak that he just left behind on the ship, and now he brought it back and gave it back to him. I It's probably just that. That's probably all it is. But I'm wondering if the cloak is more important in another way.
That's good question. Yeah,
Yeah.
It
you wonder if that's
is.
gonna come up. Yeah.
We saw him using there's some kind of illusionary spell woven into it. He was using it as a disguise, further to enhance his disguises when he went to Tara in the last book.
Oh, okay. Nice. Wait, then how did he leave it behind on Phelan's ship?
Or maybe he used it in somewhere. I forget it. It got left behind somewhere. Let me see what he says.
During the Ayat attack in Trader's Knot, right? That's when it got left behind, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I don't remember when. I don't remember the cloak at all. But based on what Davian said, it was left behind on Phelan's ship, I think.
Yeah, because I'm trying to find that part because I remember Davian's like, you were criminally careless with gifts.
Yeah.
Or am I misremembering that he brought him with the cloak on Phelan's ship, but he hid it somewhere else? But he didn't go anywhere between Atara and San Bashir.
Okay, so he takes the he unpinned his rich mantle that once been gifted and left overlook in the leave taking from Phelan's brig.
So Phelan at some point dropped him off.
Yeah, it got left behind there, and
Right.
Davian had picked it up and Uh,
Yeah.
right.
I like there's the conversation that follows. I forget what it is that. Yeah. Yeah. This was interesting. Maybe you guys can help explain this a little bit. So Arathon, well, he's obviously distraught by what he sees in the battle, but what has bothered him more is the note that the Paravian walls have raised when they were being assaulted, and it was a note of joy that he heard. And Kirill says, I see I see that I lack the experience upon which to base understanding. And I was like, me too. Please explain why joy would drive him uh like to such despair.
Was he referring to Lysaea's joy at using the power?
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
And because that shouldn't be a joyous thing. It should be.
Oh,
Um,
Irritharis would not work in disharmony. Okay, yeah, maybe that's what that
Yeah.
means.
Plus, like uh, um, Davian mentions that uh, um, he's like acute, like overly sensitive after his experience in the Grove, and hasn't, because he spent so long uh, um, fighting the Mistwraith's curse that he doesn't hasn't recovered his in own inner balance and sense of who he is without it quite yet.
No, that part I understood. Just like the exposure to the Paravian awesomeness would disbalance him more. But according to Kirill's question, what note could Arathon hear that was damaging? And Davian says he heard joy, and that caused apparently more damage than it would have if it had not been joy. At least that's how I read those two sentences.
what page is that on in your book?
218. I think the Kindle book and the paperback have the same page numbers.
Oh, acute state of sensitivity. Okay, all right. Yeah.
While you're looking for that, Sulfin Evand is back.
Yeah.
And I mean, he looked like he was going back in to give Lysair his full support, but then he comes back, kicks all the guards out, and says, "What the hell have you been doing? We'll do this my way, not your way." With all that show of uh, what whatever it is, stop putting on a show and just like do this like a normal person.
Yeah. I think on reading this again, I think it's just the Kirill cannot understand the joy of actually wielding such power.
Hmm.
Because all he's seen is the destructive side of it
Hmm.
for the most part. And that's kind of the understanding I got from it.
I see. So, Lysair's wielding of such power
Yeah.
brought joy. Okay.
I had a question a little earlier too. When it says that the mirror flash from the Windtalk Gate, last dispatch from the captain scorched dead at his post, had been set in time. It was like a warning, a critical signal unleashed the poison line for the British defense. And that warning, did we see that earlier in the book?
What
Was
page
that
is this?
mentioned before? 214 near the top, the second paragraph.
Hmm.
And because it seemed to be some kind of backlash from its arcane shielding that the Britain Citadel has, Because the Lysaea's raw power clashed against Alastron's innermost bastions, and
And that triggered some Paravian
but there seemed to
defenses,
be,
right?
yeah, it seemed to be that there was a warning sent prior to this attack.
Well, it was sent in time. What um, they ran in to the lower city, and and all the traps went off, which killed a bunch of people, and then Lysair, did his I'm going to scour this, uh, and while his light attack went off, the one guard who ended up stayed at his post, sent a signal in time, which is what they launched the trebuchets and the boulders and whatnot through the deflected blast of Lazair's power, which turned it all molten and rained molten rock all down across his forces.
Yeah, it's just that line had been sent in time, was in italicized, and I thought that was like pretty important to be italicized like
Critical
that.
signal already unleashed. Uh, the poised lines, and then the troops cut free the.
So that allowed them the warning they needed to set up all the traps and to set them off at the proper moment.
For firing off the trebuchets,
Yeah, right. Okay.
and then
All right, cool. Yeah, and then and there was an interesting little an interesting display of Davian's magic where he was telling Arathon and Kyriolts not to speak while they're traveling, because that way nobody would actually notice them. So he was using magic kind of to cloak their passage. But it was just so subtle in the way she worded it. You could easily like just skip over that if you're not paying attention when you're reading that he's using magic, because she never says Davian's using magic. She does it such a way that's just so descriptive and subtle that if you don't go, oh wait a minute, he's using magic.
And apparently it's of a kind that the clansmen who are so tuned to magic can't detect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, yeah. Then Vasha, you mentioned the return of Sultan Evan,
Yes.
and he was mad.
Yeah. He's I like the talking to he gives Lysair when he comes back.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh
always great.
yeah, but the Lysair and Koryani interaction was before he comes back, right? When he like
Well, yeah, they had a little section on Sultan before the Lysaea thing with the Koryani,
Mhm.
but he didn't
Yeah.
he didn't talk to Lysaea until after that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
He So he went and offered help to the Koryani. The last time they had an exchange, they maybe he doesn't know this. They stole his hair and did something with it. Now Celides like, oh, can you do something so he doesn't back down even if he starts getting second thoughts? And like, yeah, already taken care of. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was kind of making all nice with them and stuff,
Hmm.
and I was like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah. Why?
How are you trusting these people? But I mean, they are healing his soldiers. The regular Koryani members. They're performing a service for his army. Um, but but then when Seladai, right? That's her name. When she shows up, um, I'm just like, I can't stand her.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really hate her, and I was just, like,
And
it's weird that we hate her more than we do Lysaea, because he's like,
yeah.
he's
I
the opponent for Arathon, but it's just like, wow, she's so evil.
I mean, Lysair's. to a certain extent, lost his free choice because of the mistreat, but Muriel slash Celedy very much has hers and is totally, at least so far, seems to be completely misusing her power. And actually, no, I don't think I need to know her ulterior motive. Whatever she's doing, the way she's getting there by enslaving people to her will, possessing random people, yeah, that's not cool.
Yeah, not cool at all.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't make an alliance with her. I'm like, don't do it. But
Stop it.
Sulfan's,
Leave.
honestly concerned, about, even if he doesn't make an alliance with her, Sulfan's like, yeah, but he already knows you can trigger, the curse by a fetch and whatnot.
yeah,
And so
Yep.
he's like, yeah, there's, he's really worried that, they'll just set him, set Lysair off and cause a complete disaster.
yeah,
Because he's Sulfans gets nightmares about Lysair killing everybody and Dion Ramon.
yeah, that's right.
Like, did you stop and think for 2 seconds about why the prime matriarch herself is here? why you should be worried about that? But uh, anyway, I
Yeah.
think. Oh, and then is that all before the confrontation between Arathon and Genza?
Um. Well, then there was a little bit of planning by Phelan,
Phelan,
trying
yes.
to make plans with the who was it? The kingdom of Howland? Is it? No, who is it?
Havish.
Havish.
Havish. Yes, Havish. Yeah, and it was interesting. So she's trying to make plans to get like supplies and stuff. Get through the blockade somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how she's gonna pull that off, but
And then we come to our news items.
yes. Then we have some more about those dragon hatchlings in the debris.
And we get an update for Asandir too.
Yeah, and he's Scarpdale's Grimward.
Yep.
Oh, he's got what is his the spirit of his stallion or whatever, his horse?
Yeah, the same hour that a drifter gifts a weanling colt sired by Esfaran to Althane Tower, Asandir struggles against driving sleet inside of Scarpdale's Grimward. He still holds the shade of a stallion secured between his cupped palms, although he slips as the footing shifts to glare ice and a lightning flare blinds his bearings. So, yeah, he's not doing well. And then,
I'm
he's
curious.
kind of pissed.
I'm curious about why Asandir's horse seems so important. I
Right.
wonder if it's just more than an attachment to the horse and what significance the horse has.
Right. Yeah, I'm wondering about that as myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a great horse, but
Well, yeah, and I think there's definitely something going on there because, even he's remarked at some point, that horse is the only, animal I trust to, it's like he can go walk into a focus circle and the horse will just, calmly stands there, where as every other horse, will freak out.
Sure. Yeah. Cool.
He should just learn to fly like Davian does. What else?
All right. So, next chapter, the siege. But it's funny. The next chapter is called Siege, but we're also getting just a lot of talking of people within the Citadel, and Galera's urging Sidea to deal with Fion, and I had a question about what the hell was it? When Arathon, he asked Davian for help to get inside for the crossing. And Davian says, yes, provided you know that your passage comes at a price. What's that going to be?
I thought he, mentions that, which
I thought it was just those two coming along with him.
Yeah, I thought that is that, or he has mentioned that hey, I won't be able to, don't rely on me.
Okay. I didn't know if that price was something just simple discomfort on the part of the travelers, or if it was something more sinister. Because we still don't know what Davian's up to.
Yeah.
I will ask for a pound of flesh. It seems like they have a very mutually trusting relationship, though. Arathorn's calling on him when he feels like Davian's coming along and chiding him about how he treats his gifts and whatnot. This seems like a camaraderie that he hasn't shared with any other fellowship sorcerer.
Yeah. But I do like, it's named Siege, and I think this is something, we don't see a lot in, fantasy is, a siege is really kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's like you've surrounded the place and you've parked all your forces, where they can't, toss, beyond the range of their, catapults and trebuchets and whatnot. But that means they also can't come out because your force is numerically superior, and so you're just sitting there waiting to see, if one side flinches the other while you wait them out, because eventually they're going to run out of food.
Yeah, no, it's real life sieges weren't the funnest times.
How did he, put it? No forays occurred night after still night upon the stripped earth. Enemy drilled troops and exercised, fractious horses. They sprawled and caroused in their invasive pavilions, while the mute-up defenders watched their maneuvers from the cold, distant height of the parapets. To stand down was to risk being taken off guard. Any dark, cloudy night, the light sword commander might launch a sneak attack against the watch turrets at the harbor front. To endure each patrol, hung in fraught expectation, became an agony in itself. The empty hours sawed at the nerves until the misery of endless inaction blunted the senses like a dull knife.
Yep.
Like such a great. It's like, yeah, no, this really, really sucks.
Yeah, no, a siege would drive me nuts.
And Sulfan's determined to be like, yeah, you've already made a big mess out of this. We're going to do this my way, which is, we're going to starve them out.
Yep. Yeah, he takes charge and he's doing things, the way he was trained to do. That, maybe Lysaea wasn't trained to do the hothead.
Yep. And Sidir and Fionn Arith have a conversation too.
Yeah, that brat.
That brat. And the brat Genza. At what point do I start liking either of them?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
And we find too, I think it's been mentioned before, where Sidir's like, he's the last one left alive, who fought in, of those who fought at Talquorin.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
to Vastmark.
Vastmark, yeah.
Yeah. This was interesting during Arathon's flight across the forest to get to the fortress. Apparently, he saw for a fleeting instant the mote of his being perceived more, the stark yellow eye of a living awareness coiled within the stilled earth. The bottomless black pupil lurked under the pool, enclosed by a shimmering iris. Then the descending spark of himself splashed into the unruffled water. The impression that something watched fled away. What is this? It has.
Oh no! I missed that. I must have blanked out. I totally missed that.
you'll have to wait and see. I'm not telling you.
You don't say.
All right.
I know, but I'm not telling
It,
All right.
it
Biting the
seems
tongue
like
again.
some kind of dragon thing. I don't think it's the mist, right? Because it doesn't have any physical pupils and uh what the bottomless black pupil. But is it? It can't be the hatchling either, right? Anyway, that was curious. I did this.
you.
What
Yeah,
this?
not one of the not one of the not anything. Well, you know, yeah, it's not one of the hatchlings
Mhm.
or their spirits.
Yeah. I love the there was one passage in the first audience section where Dakar he's Mayern is playing cards. They're playing cards and stuff, and this was also deals with the boringness of a siege in that they got rainy weather that made the tap room a dim cave. Candle lamps on their chains flickered low. The windows were dark, still, filmed by the clogged air, redolent of sweaty fleece and damp steel. Dice rattled and cards slapped and slid on worn wood, while the men soaked their hard wartime biscuits in an onion broth that simmered the salted jerked meat into palatable gruel. I like no noise reigned, but no drunkenness. And the muscular barkeeper rationed the beer and defended his tap like a jackal. I was just like, wow, that's not a joyous place to be. They're trying their best um to get by, to give the semblance of regular life, but you can tell it's just so muted and under siege, literally, that that description, it's like it's describing something that's supposed to be fun to do, but the description is not fun at all. And I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it totally was. The On the subject of men and bets, though, when Arathon says, "Oh, the curse of the mistake has been lifted from me," Mian's reaction is, "Oh, I won the bet that I made with Patty about whether or not that will happen."
Yep. Yeah, I like Mayor, and he's a great character.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then he comes in. He's the one that retrieves Arathon for the showdown with the Duke,
Yep.
which is good.
And
Good
and
stuff.
I like that the guards think that Fiona was escorted to the Duke because they look alike. That's a confusion that would happen, right? So that was
Oh
funny.
yeah. 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 And
Yeah.
I
What else?
love how Dakar just immediately, you know, realizes it and is just like, "What? How?"
yeah, right. Yeah, because his mage sight could see that right away, right? Uh, yeah, that's great. Yeah, the reactions, the character reactions, they're all just so well done.
Yep, definitely. And then he plays some music for Dame Dor, and Jensa understands him more. Although I feel like a version of this happened before, but she still held on to her anger. But maybe this time it will hold.
Yeah, she seems to, no pun intended, but change her tune a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's going to confront Branzian and the, whatnot, up in that same room where they tortured Dakar.
Yeah, right.
Maybe Dakar's like, "No, you don't want to do this. I remember it."
Yeah.
And that's as far as I got. I stopped at the place where I guess Brandian is arresting Jenza for so that she won't just decide to leave with Arathon.
Well, when the soldiers come to get her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's in chapter 8, though.
Oh, we haven't got there yet. Okay.
One thing in chapter 7 still was they mentioned Parian um, is having trouble, of course, getting into any ports and stuff. Uh, and he, like some of his men want to turn to piracy in order to get by, because they can't restock. They can't. They're having trouble with that. Um, and I really like uh, his philosophy um, when somebody questions him about people wanting to follow Lysaea. I think it was Vanden that was questioning him, and he says our mortal nature strives for a known order, though we tend to forget structured limits deliver stagnation that leads to sterility. And I thought that was a very insightful observation from the one of the Bridian clansmen that probably should be giving this kind of advice inside the inside the fortress rather than wallowing away out at sea trying to trying to get back. But
Yeah.
it was just
14 highlighters agree with you.
yeah.
That was a pretty popular line in the Kindle book.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, oh wow! I didn't even realize what those little numbers were meant in
Oh,
Kindle. I had no idea.
yeah. Okay.
All right, yeah, and then we get the next chapter, first turning.
Mhm.
Um, I in this one, Jensa is arguing with Fion again. Um, they do that a lot. Uh, but I thought Fion actually had some decent questions in response. As he's saying, he's talking about um, oh, what was it? Oh, how they're making them work so hard, you know, and he's bringing up the point that most people don't want to stay here. They wanted to flee, but their duke, being so stubborn, refused to flee. Even the woman and children, he refused to let them go, and he was pointing out that hypocrisy, because it's the same way that Lysaea is getting people to follow him blindly, basically. And so I just thought that was some interesting back and forth there, characterization.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and yeah, and then yeah, like you said, Arathon plays for the dame and basically convinces Dame Daw to leave, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, she says I'll come with you when you start taking people with you, but
Right. Yeah.
but we don't know if that'll happen, or
We
at
don't
least
know.
I
Right.
don't know by the end of chapter 8. I haven't got
Uh,
to that.
no, we don't get there yet. So you didn't miss anything there. Um, yeah, soldiers come to arrest Gensha, and I forget what
Yeah.
the reason was behind that.
I Okay, I don't know like if they state a reason later because I haven't got to that part yet, but I guess Branzian's wife tells him if Arathon will leave, if Jensa goes along with her, then you
Yeah.
got to do something about that. And
Yes, that's
and
right.
he does.
That's right. Yeah, he's taking
Yeah.
her because he doesn't want Arathon to leave, and um,
Yeah.
his
After he,
his arrest of Gensha is not looked upon very favorably at all by Mayern, um,
Anybody.
or
yeah,
anybody really. Uh, and Mayern says that he defied charter law by doing this in the news item at the end. Spoiler, Vasha. Um, but that the Duke defied charter law by arresting a guest, um, and so we don't see the that's in the news item. So I imagine we're going to see the ramifications of that further on.
Is that grounds for losing his dukeship or dukedom so that somebody with more sense can lead the people out of this siege?
It
Yeah, I
might
don't know.
be.
It might be. I'm not sure. Um, yep. But then, okay, so Dakar sees this also going on. He has like visions that this is happening. And then I don't know if you got to this, Vasha, but the section called Jeopardy. That's where we find out Sadir gets very mortally wounded in
Oh
the
no.
fight with the guards. He actually ends up killing a few of them. He gets mortally wounded, and Arathon shows up with Alara, and they're attempting to save his life.
Okay.
Very risky proposition because Alara's because the Coriani are paying attention to what Alara's
Oh,
doing. And
damn
there's a
it.
whole bunch of magical explanation in there about why it's all risky and everything, and but basically the sword comes into play at this point, and does something to help out with that very risky situation. So it was pretty cool. Just wait till you read it. It was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, didn't Arathon brandish the sword at a different fight? Which who was it with?
Oh, that was with the
He
Duke.
went to see Branzian,
Okay.
the
Yeah.
Duke. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
yeah, and yeah. So it was cool. It was really cool.
yeah.
So read it tonight.
Yep. I'll get to it tonight. I think according to my Kindle, I have 45 minutes left in the chapter, which usually translates to about an hour. I don't, it always lies
Oh,
to me.
right. Yeah.
Or anyway, I'll shut up. uh, so next week is chapters 9 through 6, not 16, 9 through 12.
Yeah. Yep.
They're
Um,
all neatly 40-ish pages long. Which
what
is
I'm
nice.
wondering is, like, she tried to interfere again, uh, Celadie Prime. How many failures is she going to get away with? Because she keeps failing.
So
I mean, she's gonna keep going until she gets what she wants.
Yeah,
yeah,
I know, but she's been a failure of a villain so far. She's been thwarted,
yeah.
a lot.
It's
Uh,
I my favorite bit was when Muriel transferred herself into Celadie because I was like young and beautiful. She'll live for a long time. I have another 1,000 years at least to get what I want. 5 seconds later, her hands are burnt and she can't do anything anymore.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's fun to watch her fail though. I
it is.
want her to stay and keep trying so she can keep
Yeah,
failing. At some point she'll succeed though, and that will be horrible.
yeah. Well, hopefully not, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I think we're good.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We will see you all in 2 weeks with chapters 9 through 12. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.